You all know that this is actually the second half of my most recent conversation with Julia Minium as we continue reading through stories from Trish's book, My View from the Porch Swing. If you missed the first half, I suggest going back to episode 10 before continuing here. Otherwise, thank you for listening and please enjoy this episode of Sly History. So the next one I have, once again, you're mentioned here a few times, but so is Scott, your husband. But it's about, it's called She Was So Sick. And it's just how your mother introduced people in the family.
Oh, yes. I know why I'm. Yes, and I know why Scott's mentioned. Okay. I've actually told this story before. So would you like me to read it?
Yeah, absolutely.
She was so sick. You may as well hear it from me. I think this is a first. I was so sick when I was a baby. There is a huge background to this story, but I'll spare you such details. Suffice to say that I was born with some sort of, still unexplained, malfunction of my liver. I underwent 2 surgeries by the time I was a year old, and it is a miracle I am alive today. The problem is, this is how I became labeled in the daily pecking order of things. An introduction of my siblings and I might go something like, this is our daughter Celia. She is the oldest. This is Jim, our only son. This is Margaret, our middle child. This is Trish. She's the one who was so sick when she was born. This is Julia, the baby. That is not inaccurate. Okay. Julia, perhaps this is the baby label runs a very close second, but in no ways beats out she was so sick when she was little. Not a chance. This was included in any introduction, family reunions, complete strangers, business associates, first day of school, etc. They all knew instantly that I had a sad, sickly background. I think I even spotted some folks looking behind me for a wheelchair and a cane or other aid. Again, not inaccurate. This will give you an idea how long this label survived. Several family friends hosted a wedding shower for me in 1987. I was 24 years old. I had lived away from my small hometown more or less since graduating from high school in 1980. At the shower, I received a gift addressed to, quote, the miracle baby, end quote. That's it. No other name. It was from my dear sweet lady who was a member of the church that I had attended growing up in Williston, Florida. It never occurred to me that my husband would think the card was on when I shared it with him. Quote, what does that mean? Do they think you have a bun in the oven or something?
God.
I can totally see that conversation, although I was not witness to it. I can totally see it. I should mention that if my dad was around during the introduction, he was always quick to follow, quote, she was so sick as a baby, end quote, by jumping in most times, but not always, with the assurance, but as you can see, she's quite healthy now. Thanks, Dad. P.S. Julia's husband, Scott, says he had a label all his own, even though his status is in law. He can recall my mom introducing him as, and this is Julia's little, actually she said Juliana, so that's incorrect. And this is Juliana's little friend, Scott. Sorry, Scott. It's related to that, and this is my baby introduction Julia always gets. Babies have little friends, not boyfriends. And I kid you not. I heard her introduce him as, this is Juliana's little husband, at least once.
No.
Yes.
Little husband. Like, at least she upgraded to husband, but she kept the little?
She kept the little. Scott was just like, what? God, that was so mom. But she always said it, Juliana's
little friend.
Juliana's little friend. The alliteration was important, I think, for her in that one. It was never
The syllable count
Julia.
works.
Right.
Juliana's little
She
friend.
only ever referred to me as Julia when she was like calling her daughter, like when she talked to me or talked to one of my siblings. If we were not in the home, if it was
She used
at
your government name
school,
in those cases.
yes. And if I was in trouble,
Yeah.
you just pull out that mom voice and say every syllable of Juliana emphatically. Yeah.
There's a lot of
That will
syllables
make my
there to
head.
work with.
Yeah. And now, do you know the story of no middle initial? Is that in the book?
I don't recall that.
Trish and Margaret don't have middle names. Mother did not give them middle names.
Really? Which
Yeah,
that
so
stands out to me only because of y'all being Southerners. When Southern tradition, middle names
not
are
only to have but to have double first names with a middle name.
right.
That's yeah. So Celia Ann, Margaret, Patricia, and then Juliana Dean. My middle name was Dean. And so one day, finally, I don't know if I was born yet. I probably was because Trish was 4.5 when I was born. So, taking all those standardized tests where you get to the middle initial and she has to go all the way down to the bottom to NMI,
Yeah.
NIMI. And that's what we would do, Patricia NIMI daily.
No middle initial.
No middle
Yeah.
initial. So she went to mom at one point and asked, why don't Margaret and I have middle names? To which mother's answer was, well, your first names are so long. I didn't think you needed a middle name. And I think, the way Trisha told the story to me, it was like she walked away and probably got back to her room before
Juliana,
which is 2 names,
yeah.
has the middle name Dean, which is my mother's maiden name. And so, yeah, she's like, wait. So now, fast forward a few years, and Trisha is taking the SATs for the first time. And so she's a junior, and she's taking the SATs. It's the PSATs. They're the practice ones. And so, for shits and giggles, she fills in Patricia, she does Patricia, PA, fills in all the circles for Patricia, fills in all the circles for Daly. And she gets over here to this middle initial, and it's like ABC.
Yeah.
And then NIMI. So she gets all the way down there, and just for shits and giggles, colors in Z. So now, for the next year, she does it legit. She does the NIMI, legit. So she got college offers. She would get 2 college offers from every university.
What?
She would get spam, junk mail, spam mail.
Yeah.
She would get addressed to Patricia Daly and to Patricia Z Daly. So that was just, so we decided her name was Zelda. Her middle name was Zelda.
That's great.
And so, so after that, so when I got married, I sent an invitation, and I actually wrote on the inside envelope for, Dawn Mudgett and Patricia Zelda. Or I actually wrote Zelda Mudgett or something like that. Now, she was my matron of honor.
Yeah.
And so at the wedding, she goes, nah, you better be nice to me, because if I write Z on the marriage license,
it's not valid.
It's not valid. So now, wouldn't that be funny? Yeah. So anytime I sent invitations to anything formal where I had an inside envelope, I always included Zelda or the letter Z in her name.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So you know how earlier we're talking about all these random connections happening.
Yeah.
Another random just happenstance just occurred. You know our dog's name, right?
I mean, I internally laughed when I found out that Zelda was the dog's name. Yeah. But yeah.
So I just texted Rachel and I asked her to come here whenever she can, so that you can tell her
the story of Zelda.
Well, or even just So I messaged her and I said, "Did you know your mom was given a fake middle name?" And she said, "No." So here she is. Hold on.
I'm ready.
I can't believe you don't know the story. Okay, so your mother, mom did not give her a middle name. Fast forward, she's a junior in high school and she's taking the PSATs, circling in all those little dots for the Patricia Daily, and then going all the way to the bottom to do Nimmy, no middle initial. She got all the way down to Nimmy and colored in Z. So after that, when I sent out my wedding invitations, I wrote on the inside envelope, Zelda, because we called her Patricia Zelda or Patricia Z. Your husband finds it very interesting that her middle name that we chose for her was Zelda. Z.
I mean, how many options are there for Z?
There are not a lot.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, well, hey, this also tell him, this is the family with the Bobadilla in it. So, there may be more options, but we stuck with Zelda.
Yeah.
I think she said that, and I was like, wait a second, name? Like her dog shares the same name with the fake name. Well, yeah, our dog. Did you hear Rachel say, "Well, our dog's name is real"?
That is true. That is true.
We do have the paperwork proving it. That's just so wild to me that came up. It's like a joke that kind of hit a few years ago, like maybe a year or so after we got married, looking back at random screen names, right, that we choose, like our handles online and stuff. Rachel's, as far back as she can really remember, was always Arbol Girl, because Arbol is Spanish for tree. Now her last name is Woods.
I actually vaguely, I at some point did have that thought.
Yeah.
Of the tree in the woods, but it didn't,
Like it clicked after we were married. Of like, oh, that's a funny coincidence.
Okay, I actually, so whenever they have that thing on like Facebook or someone else says tag the friend, your Facebook friend you've been friends with the longest,
right?
And I'm like, well, she's 6 months older than I am, and we went to the same church, so. I have not known life without knowing that.
Right.
And so I went up to visit her. She went to FSU. So I went up to visit her when she was at FSU. So I'm staying with her in the dorms. And we're walking out. And so one of her floor mates, Beth, introduced me. And she goes, "This is my friend, Juliana Daly." And the girl starts howling, laughing. She goes, "Oh my God, you're kidding, right?" And we're like, "No. Beth's last name is Weeks." We had no idea what she found. So Daly and Weeks. And we are like sophomores in college.
And just inseparable and like best friends.
And we were just like, Daly and Weeks. Oh yeah, that is funny. And like that's when the penny dropped, and it never occurred to us.
The coincidences that occur.
Do you know, speaking of names briefly, I don't know if you've been told the story of my sister's nickname that my father gave her.
I don't think so.
Fuss Budget. But he called her Budget for short. And so after that, it was Mudgett's Budget.
Oh no!
No! Budget's Mudgett.
No, because then she married and became Mudgett.
Yes.
No.
Yes. So Trish was Mudgett's Budget, and Dawn was Budget's Mudgett. Dad did that. Dad just found that just tickling beyond belief.
That is fun wordplay right there.
Yeah, it just tickled him.
Budget's Mudgett and Mudgett's Budget. That is. That's. I love it when a plan comes together. It's like, just.
Oh. Yeah. So mine was Squee Dunk, but didn't work. Nothing else.
Well, that's because you and Stephen Funk just were never going to work out.
No, we weren't.
No,
we were not together. No, not at all. So and he just called me Dunk.
You already have so many names. We don't need another
I
one.
know, I don't. Julie, Juliana, Julia. I was telling that story the other day to someone else. I'm like, well, that's how I kind of tell where I know you from by what you
Yeah,
call me. Otherwise, I don't know you from Adam's House Cat. So yeah, that's a
that's
good one.
that's funny.
Oh man. Oh.
Oh, we've had some good tangents, but I'm ready for some other ones because this one also ends with just a note that she's left, and I'm excited to get to that point. So I'm gonna read this one for you.
I do remember that. Okay, we're ready.
As you cover up your face and turn bright red.
Oh.
So this story is simply called The Blue Bomb. It isn't unusual for families to name a pet dog, cat, or guinea pig. But a car? Sure, why not? This wasn't just any family car. This was a 1967 blue two-door Plymouth Valiant. They really don't make them like that anymore. Thank goodness. The Valiant entered our lives due to a strange twist of fate. My father was traveling from our home in Williston, Florida to the nearby town of Ocala, Florida. He was in a bit of a hurry since he was trying to get there in time to deliver a baby. In the tradition of the best laid plans, he had a bit of an accident along the way. His car being totaled, he bought the first car he saw at a nearby car lot. I think he negotiated to pay a whopping $2,500 for the car. He got more than his money's worth. He drove this car for only a short time until it became the car my just turned 16 sister Celia drove. It was convenient for my parents to have Celia cart us all over creation. I'm not sure when, how, or why the car became labeled as the Blue Bomb. Its first scrape with an inanimate object was when my sister Celia tried to clear out a palm tree from our driveway. The tree survived unharmed. The Blue Bomb took on quite a dent. Then there's my brother. My brother, who took apart an heirloom pocket watch at the age of 3, and the pieces are still stored carefully in a little box. He rigged the Blue Bomb so he could sit in it between classes and listen to the radio without the keys, which Celia kept on her person. Jim figured out how to hold down the brakes and turn on the windshield wipers so that enough battery juice made it to the radio. Perhaps no Blue Bomb wreck is as memorable as Margaret hitting a cow. Why would Margaret hit a cow, you ask? The critical question is, what was the cow doing in the middle of the road? Margaret and I were driving to a rather remote house of friends to pick her up for a basketball game. My mom wouldn't let Margaret travel the road alone. She sent me along as some sort of protector, I guess. In hindsight, with my illustrious career and close association with traffic violations since that time, I was probably more of a jinx than a protection. Let's not forget Helen, our exchange student from South Africa, becoming quite concerned for her life when she discovered that when you pulled up the floor mat on the passenger side, you could see the pavement beneath the car. Now she is ended with 2 little notes. One is me backing the car into Willie Mae's car as she pulled up for work one day. The second note that she wrote here is just simply Julia's
Oh yeah.
escapades.
Okay, I know one. so
Okay.
I do need to make a correction. I
Yes,
really
please
need to
do.
check with my brother on
Okay.
this one. Um, yes, my brother took apart the heirloom pocket watch at the age of 3 and was unable to get it back together. And I
Mhm.
saw the box with the pocket watch in it, still in pieces when I was in my teens. Um,
Okay. He never went back.
right. So it wasn't that he rigged the Blue Bomb so he could sit in between classes and listen to the radio with the keys. Um, that was a sigh. I don't know if that was the actual truth or if he screwed up the electrical when he tried to install an 8-track tape. He
Oh.
actually cut a hole in the metal dash. Yes, this had a metal dashboard.
Safety first, kids.
Right. I mean, we hit a cow with it, so so he cut into a hole for the and so yes, the most interesting part was you could push the brake and
Mhm.
then you would turn the windshield wipers would be going and the radio would be playing. But if you turned on the hazard lights, the windshield wiper would when the windshield wiper got to 12 o'clock,
Mhm.
you would hear in stereo through all the speakers blink of the hazards and then the music would continue. So it was like music, blink, music, music, blink, music, music. Yeah. Other tricks for that car. The number of times when we were driving to school with Helen in the car. Oh, well, she was concerned about, and Margaret Trish talks about pulling up the mats like there were ever mats in the front of the car. Not when she was driving it. But the fact that it was so much, I mean, yes, it was concerning that you could see the road underneath through the floorboard. But the real problem was that if you hit a mud puddle with the front right tire, it just spewed water. Why do you think the holes were where they were? Right up through those holes in the floorboard to whoever was sitting in the passenger seat. So the number of times, so Trish was kind of maniacal as well. So we always took the back road to school. So Trish was driving, Helen was in the passenger seat, and I was in the back seat. And because my school was the same school that they were going to, it was 7 through 12 in those days.
Small town, yes.
Yes. And so the first thing Trish would do is she would wait, because Helen was always kind of running a little bit late.
Mm-hmm.
So she would have her head down as she was trying to get her school, whatever it was. Trisha would swerve over to the other side of the road.
Yeah.
And then when Helen looked up, she would swerve over to the right side of the road, which scared the absolute bejesus out of Helen.
Absolutely.
She grew up driving on the left side of the road. So that would be the first panic, that she would scream at Trish. But then when Helen was paying attention and Trish was not,
mm-hmm.
Helen would start screaming and like crawling into the back seat with me every time she saw a puddle on the right side of the road, because Trisha would not slow down or dodge it, because she'd be, yeah. So then the third problem with the car, Jimmy is 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
It was a bench seat in the front seat with, flip forward, the front seats would fold down so that you could get into the back. He bolted because the track didn't go far enough back.
Right.
He took it off the track and bolted the car far enough back that he was comfortable at his 6 feet driving the car. No one thought that the shorter sisters driving it after him might have some difficulty reaching the freaking gas pedal with the car set for someone who's freaking 6 feet tall.
Right.
So I learned to drive sitting on cushions with my arms completely straight, and my big toe could reach the gas pedal. The brake was pretty easy because it's actually a little bit closer.
Yeah.
But yes, the big toe. I learned to drive with my big toe. So that's the third problem. The fourth problem, don't know whose fault this one was, but the back seat was not actually attached to anything.
What?
So it was so old. I don't know if the mounting mechanism rusted. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when
with the amount of foreign liquids entering through the floorboard, maybe.
Who knows? So when Helen would start screaming and crawling into the back seat, Trish would slam on brakes, at which point in time my seat would slide forward about 6 inches until my knees touched the front of the seat. So that was the fourth problem with the car. Fifth problem with the car, it was a year younger than I was.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am, 16, driving a car that's almost the same age.
Right.
And the story I was told, it was $250 because that's what he had in his wallet.
Oh, so not $2,500.
Yeah, that's what I was told, but I could be wrong. Do the math on he bought it brand spanking new, and it was the middle of the night, and the dealership owner knew him.
Yeah.
And actually, so Dad woke him up because he lived on site, woke him up, and the guy was like, Doc, just take one of the cars. Just go do what you have to do and bring it back tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Dad was like, nope. I'm not going to be indebted to anybody. Blah, 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 and left the money that he had in his wallet. That's the story I heard. Now, additional stories about the bomb, not my escapades.
I
don't
notice
know
you're
if it
avoiding Julia's escapades.
right, because I know which one she's talking about. So, for my escapades, one I think she's talking about, Trish had just graduated high school,
Mm-hmm.
and she was off to college, and, because I'm 4 years behind her. So it's about a year or two before and my birthday's in November. So it'll be, a year or two before I can get a license.
Yeah.
So Trish and Mom went somewhere for some reason. And I got a little hair up my butt and decided that I was going to drive the car. So I got the keys to the Blue Bomb and I drove the car. And I went down the cemetery road, through the cemetery, turned, came back and parked it. And I thought I parked it exactly in the exact same spot. But no, they knew I had driven it.
Right.
So that's the one escapade that I can think of that she actually knows about. I'm also like, are there any other real escapades
that she knows about?
Right. I'm like, was I crazy? I was the only one of my friends who had a car. Well, that's not true. Andy had a car, but like Beth, Charlie, Darlene, none of them had a car. So I would pick them up before school, and most of us were in the band, so I would take them home from practice, or we were in drama together, that kind of thing. So, and I would pick up everybody before church on Sunday nights and stuff like that. There was the time that I scratched my eye with my curling iron. So I actually scratched the cornea with my curling iron. So I was kind of like I had a patch over my eye, and it was my dominant eye, and it was Wednesday night, so we had youth programs and youth choir and all that. And so I I couldn't. I mean, I had so much. I could not. That whole depth perception thing. Like, wow, I was like, that's a thing, and I use it a lot. So my friends were like hanging out the window. She's got no depth perception. Get out of her way. That kind of stuff. But yeah, I also got it
because none of them were going to drive.
Yeah, no. None of them had licenses yet. Even though Beth had one, she didn't like driving. So yeah, but yeah, it was crazy times, but that's the only escapade I can honestly think of. I also thought by the time I was driving it, also in the back seat, you could lift up the backs of the seats and crawl into the trunk.
Nice.
And that's the escapade she probably doesn't know about. But it's one of my friends, I think it was Darlene, I can't remember. One of my friends didn't want to see somebody, so he shoved her into the trunk.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a pro move right there.
Yeah, that car. Oh man.
I have to say, Julia, I'm proud of you. That I saw the two words Julia's escapades in reference to an old family car. And your stories were very tame. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of young Julia.
Well, have I told you the story of Mother introducing me as her problem child? It was Margaret's wedding, and I don't know who it was, but she just goes, "Oh, this is my daughter Julie. This is my problem child, Juliana." And I was just like, I was like, "What? What?" I said, "You met? I never smoked. I didn't drink. I never missed curfew. I never cut class that you knew about. You met all my boyfriends. What?" And she goes, "Well, I meant academically." I'm like, "That's not what problem
That's
child
not what
means."
problem child means.
I was just so mad at her. I was just like, so in that case, I would have liked to have been my baby.
Right.
I don't think I had any other escapades that I can think of. I did not have an accident in it.
Well, there you go.
I saved my car accidents until college.
You were a late bloomer on that front.
I was a late bloomer. And I don't know if that story's in there, but it is an epic tale of woe. I was driving Trish's car.
It's not.
Registered to my father.
Okay.
And I was at fault. I ran a red light. And when I filled out the police report, I said, when I wrote James O'Daly, I said, this is the first, not the junior. My brother is the junior. And for some reason, the police officer wrote SR after it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So then when the police put in the report, they put my brother's as my brother being the one who owned the car.
Mm-hmm.
And now so that was the first mistake, but we can work with that. So the insurance company fixes the car. Meanwhile, I wasn't carrying insurance on me. I didn't have like a notification or anything.
Yeah.
And so state of Florida called the insurance company to ask if I had insurance. And the insurance company said no, because on their screen, Trish had just moved a few months earlier, like the year before. She moved from Alabama to Pensacola.
Yeah.
So when you cross state lines, you cancel the policy in Alabama and you start the policy in Florida.
Yeah.
But because of the size of the screen the woman was looking at, she only saw, instead of paging down like to see the whole account to today's date,
Yeah.
she just saw the cancellation in Alabama and told them we had canceled the policy the previous year.
Oh no.
For the state of Florida. So now, mistake number 3. State of Florida sends me notification that my license has been revoked because I was driving without insurance. Then they sent my brother a notification that his titles were revoked because he had a car that someone was driving with no insurance. Now, my brother has never driven that car, has never sat in that car, would not be able to pick the car out of a policed impound yard. So now, moving on to mistake number 4, they revoked his license without notification. So they sent him the letter about the title.
Yeah.
But because I was driving the car, it's my license that got revoked. They revoked both of our licenses, which they were not supposed to do.
Right.
That's mistake number 4. So now, meanwhile, my mother gets the notification about my driver's license. And so she's like, what the? So she calls the insurance company. And the insurance company goes, well, it says here. She goes, you paid to repair the car.
Yeah.
So
clearly they're insured.
What's going on? So I need for you to send notification to the state of Florida that you were in error and that we'll send it. She had to call them. I can't remember how many times. In the end, it was like months later. So now, mistake number 5. Mistake number 5 rolls up.
Oh my God, it keeps going.
My brother is in Flagler County, and he's driving his Jeep that he owns, and he makes a right turn on a no right turn intersection. Yeah. And so he gets pulled over. And the Flagler County Sheriff's Department is like, sir, your license is revoked, which is when my brother found out. And he was like, no, my titles have been revoked in error because I don't freaking own the car that's in question. It's like, ah. And he goes, I'm sorry, sir, but according to this, you are driving without a license. So you're going to have to appear in Flagler County Courthouse, blah, blah, blah. Now, he lived in Orange County. He lived in Orlando, and this was in, like, Flagler Beach area. So
is that North Florida?
Yeah, very far away. Well, it's a decent drive.
Yeah.
And so so he had to appear in court. Someone else, luckily he was with someone else who could drive the car, and so they drove away. And so
at least he didn't get arrested. I thought for certain they were about to arrest him. I thought that's where the story was going.
The story is not ended yet.
Oh God.
So now, mother at this point in time is getting pissed. So finally, mother, like she's told them to fax it. The state claims never showed up. The insurance company claims we faxed it. Then she's like, FedEx it. Oh, it never showed up. Oh, we FedExed it. So then she called them. She goes, because they had malpractice insurance with this company. They had the homeowner's insurance. They had all the auto insurances. I think there were 4 cars at the time.
Yeah.
With a camper. They had the practice, the building for the insurance for the actual dad's clinic
Yeah.
was through them. And she goes, we will be canceling like all 10 policies tomorrow if you do not FedEx me a copy, and including the receipt of the FedEx that you're sending, return receipt to me, blah, blah, blah. So finally, the insurance company gets the information to the state of Florida, who then says, oh, yeah, sorry, none of that should have happened. All is well. They send a letter to the judge in Flagler County sends a letter to my brother saying, understand that your license was revoked and all this stuff in error.
Oh,
So
no.
you
Oh,
do not
no.
have to appear in court. All is good.
No.
So now Dad is at the hospital in Williston. It is Friday evening before the first observance of Martin Luther King Day, which happens to be my father's birthday, when two Florida highway patrolmen or sheriff's office, I can't remember who it is, but two of the local sheriff's office come into the emergency room on other business. And they see my father sitting there and they go, Doc, where's Jimmy? And Dad's like, oh, he's in Orlando. He goes, well, when you see him, can you tell him we got a warrant for his arrest, failure to appear in court? So now my dad gets upset.
Roughly
My mother,
an estimate of time since the initial accident.
over a year.
Okay. I would imagine that this is a long period of time.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's more than a year.
Right.
And so as irate as my dad was, my mother was like just catatonic, like just looking for blood. So she calls the courthouse on Friday. And both her and my brother call the courthouse. And they both get the same response. We don't fix tickets in Flagler County. Click. They didn't even bother to listen to the story. They didn't, no questions, no asked. I don't know how they finally got it resolved. But what happened was the letter from the judge is slipped inside his folder. It's closed. And it's set to the side. And when the bailiff was coming together to prepare for the court that day, they took the no-shows, stacked it on top of my brother's folder, and walked out. And instead of actually opening the folder and reading the fact that the case was dismissed on the letter inside the folder,
right,
they just issued the warrant. And so I actually think cousin Rick was the one who got it fixed, because he's the one who called the judge. And they're not going to hang up on a judge and say, we don't fix tickets. Yeah. So a car accident I had in Pensacola, Florida, almost got my brother arrested. That's
it. The only thought I've had in my brain this entire time, as the story kept getting worse and worse and worse, for your poor innocent brother Jimmy, at least innocent in this story, is I at least hope it was a good accident. That's all I'm sitting here thinking, as I hope it wasn't just the smallest, tiniest of...
I ripped the back end off of the second car in the intersection that I ran. I mean, the car was not drivable. Neither car was drivable.
Were the other people okay in the other car?
Everybody was healthy. No one was hurt.
Okay. I don't want anyone getting hurt. I just wanted to at least
make sure it was not a little dent. It wasn't a little we didn't trade paint. We actually traded molecules.
Okay.
we actually...
There were entire chunks of the vehicle that were traded. Yes.
Okay. We went through a little... I actually flipped the car, spun the other car. I hit his back quarter panel, and he was facing the direction he was coming from when it was over.
Okay.
I did it. I hit it with authority.
Okay, that at least makes me feel a little bit better about all of this. Because if it was just well, no, I just kind of messed up and hit a tree or something, skimmed the side of a palm tree or whatever.
No, I ran a red light with authority.
Okay, with authority.
With authority. Got the points on my license to prove it. Had to go to driving school so that I could get those points taken off. Otherwise, I would lose my license again. But that was a little bit later. I'm related to Trish. There may have been a few speeding tickets in my life.
God, that's wild. That's absolutely wild. Just all of that is just wild. Oh, okay. But it like leads perfectly into like kind of notes I had kind of telling you about like plans for the future for this whole project, right? Like
Mhm.
I after, when I first started talking to Rachel about just this whole podcast idea thing of creating some sort of posterity thing really for Ezra later on, um came up as just a question to Rachel about I wonder how to bring Trish into it, right? Because like you said, I don't know her, I never met her, right?
Right.
And that's when she brought up the book, like reading the book with other people and like talking about it so that Ezra has the stories later and hears them from other people. And then that, of course, because it's my brain and I'm, cursed with the mind of creativity and taking on projects over and over and over again, evolved into like if I'm going to do this and other people in the family have talked about it for forever, I'm already talking to people, I might as well finish it, right? And so with that, like while I am writing other things, I don't think of myself as being a writer on this, right? It's just I'm
You're an
organizing it. I'm
editor.
just editing it, right? I'm taking it on, finishing what's there. And then I started talking to people. And it became, oh my, there are so many ancillary stories or related stories or straight mirroring stories.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Trish having a meal in France where she's given these fish heads, and Hannah, 25 years later in Greece, being given a plate of shrimp with fish heads with the same exact person, Marilyn, that Trish was with in France. Literally, the same exact thing is happening with the same people, but now just with Trish's daughter. And
Yeah.
like, I was like, that's a story that should be with that story. And then there's all these like Trish is cursed with cars, and then you're telling the story. We know
Oh, yeah.
Matthew, Hannah, and Rachel have their stories with cars, right?
It's a car thing.
It's just a car thing in the family. And I was like, I feel like this project has become more in my head of like, it's almost like a compendium of, Trisha's kind of impact on
Yeah.
a bunch of things, all these stories of just the whole family. And so I talked to, after we recorded part one, I talked to Matthew, Hannah, and Rachel about them writing some of these stories, like that mirror them. Hannah, of course, was like, I am not writing anything. Ryan, please write for me and I'll give notes. But Matthew and Rachel were
Like,
all
I
in.
need a ghostwriter.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're telling these stories about cars, and I was like, we've already all talked about all the
All
car
those
stories
others.
just need to be compiled with all the car stories that are already in the book. And like,
And yeah.
Trish flooding the van and, all those things. And now this one. And so I was like, would you be interested in writing any of
Yeah,
these?
I could do that.
Yeah.
I would love to do that.
I would love it
I
too.
would.
Cause it's
I would
just,
love to.
it's
Yeah.
so funny that there's just this thread throughout
Mhm.
all of it,
All of it. Yep.
that's wonderful. This was so much fun. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I
I
always do.
just this is such good stories. I always love talking to you.